Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt, and it's time for another Japanese EP wrap up. The EP wrap up is an irregular series I have that I just do whenever I have a few EPs that I've been digging that I just want to share with you guys, but don't really want to do a full review for. First up on the list is the new Final Exit EP, Middle Aged Stinking Cowboys. Final Exit is like a noisecore, grindcore kind of band that's been kicking around for a long time, really. And they're known for making micro songs. A lot of their songs are measured in seconds rather than minutes. And their music is typically composed of fast, loud, aggressive drumming, accompanied by a just noisy, lo-fi kind of wall of noise guitar and screaming. I actually have a copy of it on vinyl here. It's a nice little package. I might as well show that. Nice little black record here, black 7-inch, and it plays at 33 RPM, which is weird. Yeah, this thing is like a really strange attempt at Final Exit trying to go country almost, as you might guess by the title, Middle-Aged Stinking Cowboys. The EP kicks off with the track Theme of Middle-Aged Stinking Cowboys, and it starts off with like this kind of wind and these like distant sounds of gunshots that sound like they come from an old Western movie. They're clearly not a very well recorded gunshot. They're really kind of a cheesy, like old 6-shooter in a Western kind of sound. And it really sets the mood quite well of this like kind of cowboy Western mood. And then this kind of melancholy acoustic guitar comes in and starts playing just a pretty normal kind of Western, country Western chord progression with these slide guitar chords in the background that hang in the air and this kind of sad, lightly distorted guitar melody that plays over top of the whole thing. It really hits this kind of like theatrical country western, like right on the head. It really kind of feels like an old recording. But then, once you're kind of getting into the groove and thinking like, oh, is Final Exit just suddenly a country band on this album? They just switch without any warning into chaotic noise and screaming and just blasting like machine gun drumming. And that's kind of the MO for this whole EP. They switch between these kind of country western vibes and their typical kind of loud, screamy grindcore. Then on the next track, Moton, they are doing like a surf rock riff, and they have those same kind of slide guitar chords that just kind of slide in and hang in the atmosphere, and then they have this like upbeat rhythm, like dun 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 kind of stuff going on that's very surf rock-ish. And then once again, they switch into their loud, screaming walls of noise and aggression. This album quite clearly doesn't take itself very seriously. It's kind of over the top and a little bit ridiculous. And I think it's just a lot of fun. The songs all kind of blend together, but not in like a nice kind of like gradient kind of way where they slide into each other. It's more like a collage of just things violently crashing into each other. Final Exit likes to put all these pauses in their songs, separating different parts of the song, but it kind of makes you think that the song is over, and then the song starts back up, and you're never really sure if you've moved on to a new song or if you're just listening to the same one still, especially when I'm just listening to it on vinyl and don't have the digital version. On the song Eat Italian or Die, Final Exit does a bit more of their kind of typical grindcore stuff. We get some actual kind of metal riffage, and they don't really fool around with any of the clean kind of acoustic tones of a lot of the other songs. And on the song Let the Cheesy Smell, they do so many different ideas just kind of jumping from one to the other that it's hard to really classify. There's moments of like pop punk. There's like this weird kind of bass interlude that doesn't really make any sense. And of course, these are all punctuated by moments of noisecore and screaming and grindcore. And then on the last song, Scat of Middle-Aged Stinking Cowboys, they play the chord progression and melody from the first song, Theme of Middle-Aged Stinking Cowboys. But this time it's much more lo-fi, and instead of having a kind of distorted guitar leading the melody, it's instead one of the band members singing, just kind of, oh, oh. It's really kind of slow and dramatic, and it's really lo-fi as well. And for once, Final Exit doesn't try to throw you for a loop with noise and aggression just coming out of nowhere. Or maybe they are trying to throw you for a loop by not including that at the end when you're expecting it. But this song just goes over pretty normally, and it's just kind of this slow, somewhat theatrical, somewhat dramatic, kind of melancholy acoustic song. And this is probably the weirdest release I've ever heard from Final Exit. Not that I'm super familiar with their stuff. I've only heard a few of their little EPs and stuff. But it's an interesting little like concept EP that if you're into like grindcore and just loud, aggressive shit, I think this is a kind of silly, ridiculous, fun EP. And next up, we have the new Igloo Me EP and Yui Ground. And funnily enough, I also own this one on vinyl. There she is, looking very fashionable. And it has this really nice red vinyl. Check this out. Looks nice. So yeah, Igloo Me is a singer-songwriter who makes this kind of dreamy, spacey, kind of watery, electric pop music, like synth pop stuff, but with a little bit of a darker edge to it. She's got this kind of neo-Tokyo dystopian, like cyberpunk vibe to her. Now, she's been kicking around the indie scene for a few years now. She used to be just known as Gloomy before changing to Igloo Me. And I think she had a cassette that she put out like last year or something that I never got around to listening to. But now she's got this new EP in Yui Ground. And it's pretty bare bones. It's pretty stripped back and very electronic. It's very clear that these songs were kind of developed for a live setting, as they're pretty simple and there's not a huge amount of interesting kind of production stuff going on. But I generally like what she's doing on here. The first song, My Eyes, starts off with this really simple, like 2-chord synth bass line, and Aya singing over top of it with like just tons of echo and reverb on her voice. It really is just kind of collapsing in on itself and making this huge kind of wave of vocals. The song really slowly builds and percussion comes in and we get these kind of watery synth chords and these like kind of wavering melodies that are a little afraid to have too much presence. The song is really kind of trying to understate itself, with the exception of Aya's voice, which is really kind of dominating the mix. She loves to layer her voice over top of itself a lot, and she puts a lot of echo on her voice, and she very often has like 2 or 3 additional vocal tracks going on over top of the main melody. And it makes the songs really kind of dense. And as far as her voice goes, she sings in English and she has a really thick accent, which makes her a little hard to take seriously at times, but I can get past that. But I enjoy her vocals, and I think she has some charisma on here, but I can definitely see why somebody might listen to this by my recommendation and then come back to me and say, Zach, that was the most obnoxious singer I've ever heard. Why would you ever recommend that to me? She really likes to intentionally kind of sing off key a bit, and she does a lot of this with her voice. And her voice is also a little nasally. And, like, I can see why somebody might get aggravated by that. But I personally, while I was a little put off at first, have kind of grown to like her voice and her kind of weird personality that she puts on in her music. I do think if the production was better, her voice could be used a lot more tastefully on this album, though. There are definitely some moments where it kind of overpowers the mix to the point of being a little too much, being a little over the top and not in a fun way. On the second song, Drive, we get these kind of Animal Collective-ish kind of cycling synth loops that are really kind of watery. And we get these building arpeggios from these kind of acid house like synths and just tons of vocals. The vocals are constantly talking over each other. It reminds me a little bit of Tyash Kuchibiru. Is that the name of the band? I can't remember, but they're like this violin and guitar duo, and they just talk over each other in their songs to the point where you can't get anything out of what either of them are saying. There's kind of a similar aesthetic going on here with the vocals, with just so much going on. It's really dense and a little hard to parse at times. But that also kind of adds to the kind of bleary, kind of hypnotic and spaced out vibe that this song gives off. The songs are really hypnotic. They're really kind of futuristic sounding, but very bare bones and kind of lo-fi. I think the biggest barrier for Igloo Me going forward is that she just needs better production, and she needs to be a bit more ambitious in her songwriting. But looking at this from a kind of like beginning point and kind of seeing where she might go from here, I'm interested. And I think it's worth checking out. There are a couple songs on here up on SoundCloud that you might want to check out. And if you like those, pick up the album. It's not too expensive, and Big Love Records ships international. And finally, we have the new single from my favorite indie pop band, Hearsays. It's called Headrest, and it's literally one song. They meant it when they said single. The last we heard from Hearsays, it was December 23rd, I want to say, of 2015. And they put out 2 songs in a single that I have on vinyl. I don't have this one on vinyl, though. I can't complete the trifecta. And we haven't heard anything from them since. No new music, just this little single. But it's a good one, at least. The song is called Headrest, and it is warm and cozy, and it feels like being wrapped up in a blanket on a cold winter evening. It starts off with clean guitar chords and these kind of jangly, slightly reverby guitar melodies. And the song is just really easygoing and upbeat and really kind of happy. The vocals, as usual for the Hearsays, are great, and I just love all the melody work. There's tons of pretty melodies going on. There's constantly something happening in the song. And it's short, but sweet and to the point, and it's catchy and fun, and it just puts a smile on my face. Hearsays continues to put out what I think is the best the kind of indie pop scene has to offer, and they're showing no signs of stopping. Really love this track, and unfortunately that's it for today. I'll see you guys next week. These are all a bunch of good EPs. Links in the description to check them out, or at least one song. And have a nice day, everybody. Peace.